first and foremost, and I think Ophir and Eric will both agree, is figure out who you're targeting. I feel like a lot of people these days, especially when starting outbound, they think that they can just target anyone and everyone. And they waste a lot of time and they see very poor results because they're trying to sell to people who just simply won't buy their product or service. So figuring out who is going to actually be purchasing your product, who's going to be needing it the most, and what niche or what industry that you need to figure out on how you're going to be reaching these people is going to be most important.
Just figuring out targeting, but then as well, I guess the next step after you figure out targeting, figure out how big your market actually is. Like if you have a small addressable market that's really interested in, that's only going to fit your offer, then you probably want to tailor your strategy dependent on that. Like if your addressable market is every small business between 0 to 100K and annually in revenue, then I mean, your audience is going to be significantly larger than maybe an audience that is enterprise startups that only have maybe 10,000 people that can actually afford or qualify for your offer. So sort of the next step is just figuring that portion out. I think you'll have some better success with not only the messaging, but also who you're actually talking.
2 points I want to make here. One is that I was consulting with someone actually last week, and his product was addressable to several different types of people with in several different areas, right? And his logic behind his campaign is that it's such an addressable software that he can sell that he can market it the same way to everyone. And he's completely wrong. You can't do that. Because this is the thing, going into the second point, I want to pick up what Ophir said. Chances are that you have a very unique product that no one else has and no one else can do something similar to what you're offering is very slim. Very, 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 very slim. So you have to imagine if you have a product, there's probably 10 other ones out there that are like it. So you have to imagine there's yourself with at least 5 or 6 of your competitors already trying to touch base with this customer who is already using one of your competitors. So you're having to compete with not only the other people doing outbound, but you have to compete with getting them to move from one platform to another, right? And so since that's the challenge that you have to that you have to overcome, you have to be very particular with the way that you're conveying your product and you're conveying your message to them, because it needs to be valuable enough for them to kind of realize, like, I'm already using a product. I already have all these other people reaching out to me. Why do I want to take a meeting with them when I can go either keep using my existing product or service, or I can take a meeting with all these other people? You have to make it valuable.
Who has more data on their ideal clients, right? What kind of technologies are they currently using? What are they actually struggling with? Do they have somebody that's already doing this specific role that your service actually provides? And figuring out every single intricate detail you can, that's what it really comes down to. But then trying to sort of take that back and put it down to your playing field and understanding what level of sophistication are these people at? Like for your instance, if Rosalind, when you started seeing all these different veggie shops popping up, all these different vegetarian options, maybe yours is a vegetarian bakery, and then you have vegetarian soup shops and vegetarian just regular restaurants and whatnot, right? So then people start to sort of understand what's in the market, and I think that's what people are going to start to look for.
I think it's, especially in the SaaS world, it's important on how you position yourself, right? So back when I was leading a team of a cybersecurity company I work for, selling security awareness training, all companies were popping out with security awareness training left and right. They were either acquiring smaller companies and adding it to their suite of products like Microsoft's. All we did was security awareness training. We had the most amount of content, we had the most amount of data, and we had the most amount of effort to actually change employees' behavior. And we had all the case studies to back it up. Not everyone else had that. For Microsoft, for example, the way that they pitched it was, well, you can just add this on to whatever else you have, and it's free, right? They say it's free, but in order for it to be free, you have to purchase the next level of licensing, which unlocks all these other things, right? And then you want to get into the conversation of people want to look at their tech stack. Well, when people take a look at their tech stack, bigger companies, they don't want to have all their eggs in one basket, because we all know what happens when you put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to security. So again, that's another position that we could take, is we're specific in this niche or this area.
And if you still can't figure it out, just stay closed on.
Hypothetically, we're going the developer route, right? So how would you get started, Eric?
Well, since we're already slightly developed, and I'm assuming we've got some user base, we already understand what problem we solve. We already understand what we're actually doing and the impact that that has. So that's already a massive advantage, because then we can leverage that with our sort of initial testing phase. From there, we can go out and we can find a few thousand prospects to reach within our initial client, or I guess our deal client profile. And the outbound world, we like to call those ICPs, for anybody asking. Then from there,
I mean, numbers, if we're taking a look at different verticals, right? Obviously, you have everything that's inbound, and then you have everything that's outbound. And we all know that marketing and sales, they never work together, right? And they never communicate efficiently, right? Especially with big corporations. When it looks at when you look at numbers, right? And I'm just going to take email, for example. And I want to be clear to everyone listening. There's a lot more verticals to lead generation than just email. So I'm just using email as an example. Let's say I have 10,000 emails, right? And these 10,000 emails that I've collected are really catered to my product, right? I know that these people can be using my product to some extent, whether I have different subscription levels or whatever the case might be. There's some sort of need. Of those 10,000, let's say I can get roughly 60%, 50-60% to open up the email, just to look at it, just some sort of touch point. Even though I'm not necessarily having a conversation with them, it's still a touch point, because they're actually viewing the material and they're digesting it. So the same way as if I was running an ad on social media and they saw it, the same way they're opening up that email and looking at it. Of those 50 or 60%, of those 5,000 or 6,000 that are looking at it, I mean, if we're talking like general numbers, I'd say probably around a 12% conversion ratio, turning them over into a client. But if you have a little bit higher numbers, maybe we're talking like 15 to 20% conversion rates over to clients. I think the most important part, though, is while you're talking with these people, is to educate them. As long as you're educating people, they're going to be thinking about your product.
There's multiple ways to sort of work different angles in cold outreach. And one of the ways that I like to sort of start on the initial way is just asking an open, or not an open-ended question, but asking a very specific question that will sort of lead my prospect down almost like an adventure, right? Or they're taking their own journey through my outreach. And so finding the solutions that people will like, and at least you have that data point. A lot of them don't like it. So that you could use that to segue into a different solution. So looking at different angles and sort of seeing how you can sort of take your prospects through a specific journey through your emails is one way to really not only build trust, but look like you're actually understanding their position.
I love objections, and I love getting them at all points in time, whether it's on the call or on the email. Yeah, I love objections. So I'm going to pull a famous quote from Brian Tracy, is to treat objections like a request for additional information, because that's why you're getting the objection in the first place, is because the prospect they don't have enough information on what you're even trying to reach out for. So then we can pull in actual tactics from Chris Voss from Never Split the Difference, and you can either label or mirror. I don't ever, if someone says take me off of your mailing list, or they're like F you, I don't want to hear from you, something like that, like, yeah, I'm going to leave them alone. But if someone is giving me information that they're using a competitor, handle that objection. Don't not reply to them, or don't just say thanks for letting me know. No, there's a reason why they're giving you that information in the first place. If someone is truly 100% happy with no issues at all whatsoever, why would they even bring that up in the first place?
But I think at the SMB level, it's more like Use a tool like Apollo, use a tool like Instantly or Smartly, use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and just try to use, I guess, more targeted messaging and more targeted outreach as opposed to trying to blast everybody, because at that level, you just don't have the resources. Even if you do go out and blast 10,000 emails a day, you're trying to run a business and it's a small company. You don't have the manpower to sit there and deal with the replies on that. It's not worth it at that point. So just sticking person to person as much as possible and starting small with a stack like that, I think we'll get pretty good value out of that.
Seamless AI is another great one as well.
Mm-hmm.
For lead scraping. I mean, there's tons of tools out there, but say hypothetically you don't have resources for tools, you have zero budget. Listen, I'm gonna give you the OG on when I started prospecting 9 years ago, how I had to do it when I had no resources. I used Google Maps. I used there was a site, because I was selling government, so there was a site that could list me out all the different schools, all the different government counties, stuff like that, utility buildings like within an area, and because it's all public information. So I'd use Google Maps, I'd use a combination of that, and I would build out into a spreadsheet, into a Google spreadsheet, because again, it's free. I would mark down everyone that I wanted, and I would color code, and I would put in all the correspondence into this spreadsheet on when's the last time I called them, what are, like, do they want a follow-up meeting, whatever. And I had different tabs at the bottom of the spreadsheet, so depending on where they were, like if there was a booked meeting, I would copy and paste them into another tab and list them all right there. And I did that for a while, actually, and it works. And I sold tens of thousands of dollars worth of software doing it, if not hundreds of thousands. And you don't need to have a budget to generate leads. You don't need to have a budget to start selling. You just need to have creativity, and you need to be able to just have that want to go out there and do it in the first. You need a CRM, you need to be organized, and everything needs to be in one place. And listen, I know if is gonna hate that I say that or say this. Even if you want to use something like ClickUp as a CRM, at least it is something that can get you. With sales, they don't see what marketing is doing. They don't see that someone could have seen that ad 20 times. They don't see that someone could have filled out that form online. They don't see the efforts that of the continuous content posting, of the continuous like online presence that they're building. And in the hindsight, when they're not getting as much inbound leads, the first thing that sales is going to say is it's marketing's fault. And then if sales isn't selling as much because they don't have as much inbound leads, marketing is going to say that they're doing a job and it's sales' fault that they're not selling enough. And so it's a constant, like, it's like that Spider-Man meme where like one Spider-Man's pointing to this one and then that one and then that one, and like they're all in the same team, they all have the same objective, but they're all putting blame on each other. And I'm going to make a bold prediction, a very bold prediction, and I think inbound, because I think of how bad the spam is with inbound right now. I think for a lot of people, they're going to find more success with inbound as opposed to outbound. And more people are going to move away from outbound because now we have stuff like creating content, referrals, we have ads, we have all sorts of various different systems that you can utilize together to make a really strong inbound machine. Now, with some businesses, outbound is never going to go away. Don't get me wrong. And it never will go away. There's always going to be someone reaching out to someone else for outbound. But I think we're going to start seeing a shift here soon. And I think I've already started seeing it, like even with myself, with my business. I focus more on inbound and referrals because everyone's getting hit so heavily with inbound right now through LinkedIn, through DMs, through emails, through calls.
I think it just makes sense that an organic funnel inevitably is just going to pick up traffic over time, and it makes sense. It's not just somebody that is some AI bot, which we got to be wary of these days. But I think one of the things that's going to change is data is going to become a lot more accessible. I think the cost for data has significantly dropped over the years. Whereas I think we're going to have so many different touch points that you're not even going to be able to tell in an outbound message if something's automated or if something is directly written towards you. So I think we're in the in between stages between pre AI and the AI sort of cool down of where everything boomed and everyone's freaking out about which tools are going to do what. But I think it's as it sort of decides to like supersede and level out. I think we're going to see some interesting tools come into everybody's daily stack.